first. Okay. John, are you there?
Hi, good afternoon,
Ah,
guys.
oh, wow. Hi.
Hi,
Good
good
to see
afternoon, everyone.
you. Sorry, no makulit ako. I followed up
Hi,
on you.
hindi naman po.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for okay. At 3:01 we'll start, no? 3:01. I'm just waiting for some of our friends to get into the Zoom. Anyway, Raven, take charge of accepting, no? Okay. Yes. Wait. I think it's 3:01 now, so let's start. So that will be on time. Wait lang. Bakit nawala ako sa ano? Okay. Raven?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, parang nawala ang screen. We're gonna start now. You take charge of accepting and I'll take charge of the ano. Mamaya ha, medyo na ano ako sa tech.
Oh, but I think Sir Sixto is still connecting po his audio.
Okay, sige. Hintayin natin siya kasi he will deliver the opening remarks. So we have to wait so that everyone is on board before we actually start. But I'm also trying to check my screen kasi hindi ko makita ang aking. Oh, wow. Okay, so it will.
He's connected na po.
Oo. Raven, ako ba ang nakaano or ikaw? Hindi ko maano yung ano ko eh. Makita. Ang setup ko ba? Sabihin mo ako. Okay. Oh, wow. Sige, Raven, let's start, no?
Okay.
Hindi ko makita ang sarili ko actually, Raven.
For me po, I can see you. In my end, I can see you.
Oo. Okay. So, ayan, better. Okay, sige. Okay na, no? Let's start. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope everyone is in good shape and thank you for attending this APCO forum. So let's start. To APCO members and trustees, to our distinguished resource speakers, to our media friends, to our local and foreign friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to APCO forum with the theme China New Rules on Online Lessons and Implications on Filipino Teachers. My name is Ana Malindog Uy, and I will be the moderator of this forum. So as we all know, the Chinese government has issued stringent new regulations for the private education industry. The rules include requiring tutoring and education services firms to convert to nonprofit status, banning core curriculum tutoring aimed at passing exams during the weekends and vacations, and forbidding foreign curricula or hiring foreign outside of China to teach remotely. So it's something like they're banning foreigners to teach in China. No? On this note, the discussion of today's forum will shed light on the question why China has imposed new rules and restrictions on private online tutoring or online lessons for Chinese kids, and how this impact on Filipino English teachers teaching online via virtual platforms So to start our forum, may I call on the APCO chairman of the youth committee, APCO director, Ms. Matty Hong Chai, for the invocation. Ms. Matty?
Thank you, Ma'am Ana. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God. Heavenly Father, we glorify your name, for you are good and loving. We thank you for each mind and heart that feels the presence of this room. Strengthen our confidence in who you have made us be. Thank you for this opportunity to learn together so we could grow in wisdom and understanding. Bless this virtual gathering, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. We would also like to pray for the people in Ukraine. We pray for peace and the laying down of weapons, enlightenment of the global leaders, We pray for strength for all those who fear for tomorrow, that your spirit of comfort draws near them. We pray for the protection for all your precious children who are at risk and in fear in these dark times. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Maffey. The next part of our program is the opening remarks to be delivered by our Vice Chairman, Mr. Sixto Benedicto. Supposedly, it's Secretary Raul Lambino, but I think he's not available at this time. So it's our Vice Chairman, Mr. Sixto Benedicto, who will deliver the opening remarks. Sir Noy, you have the floor, po.
Thank you, Anna. Allow me to read the welcoming remarks of our chairman, Secretary Lambino. Good afternoon to all our guests and participants. Welcome to the second APCU forum for the year. Today's discussion focuses on China's new rules on online lessons and the implications of this move on Filipino teachers. In China, there is said to be a competitive, if not relentless, pursuit of education because of the better life it promises. But this competitive higher education system and its culture, obsessed with test scores, has created an unforeseen offspring. It is called online tutoring, and services of this type are popular with parents because everyone feels that, quote, nobody wants to lose at the starting line. The burden of this pursuit puts added financial pressures on families already dealing with climbing house prices and costly health care, among others. Enter China's ruling Communist Party. It has tried to slow the so-called education treadmill by banning student homework, curbing live stream hours of online tutors, and creating coveted slots of top universities. Sometime in September, China ramped up efforts to stamp out all tutoring for profit. It banned private tutors from giving classes online or in unregistered venues like coffee shops, hotels, and residential buildings. Many have expressed doubts that it will work and that the ban favored only the wealthy by simply hiring expensive private tutors. In fact, media reported last September on various ways parents and tutors have been trying to circumvent the rules. There is also another aspect to this ban that makes it a formidable challenge. It is that the crackdown on private education is a new aspect of Beijing's campaign to toughen regulations on corporate China. According to the New York Times, this effort is driven in part by, quote, the party's desire to show its most powerful technology giants who is boss. China's top leader, Xi Jinping, has attacked the industry as a malady. In a New York Times report, President Xi said that parents faced, quote, a dilemma in balancing the health and happiness of their children with the demand of a competitive system, which is too focused on testing and scores, end of quote. So now, how is the new education policy by China impacting Filipino teachers? The new tools of communications, technology, have theoretically enabled Filipino tutors to easily tap into this rich Chinese private tutoring market. Online tutors are said to command salaries of up to $4,000 a month. The stakes are high for Filipino teachers. Our two guest resource speakers will enlighten us today on what could happen now to Filipino teachers and what would be the alternative or alternatives available to them. The first is John Nicolo Fredrik Fernandez, APPCU 2021 Laureate and former 51 Top Brand Ambassador. The other is Austin Ong. He is Program Manager of the Integrated Development Studies Institute. So without further ado, let's begin this timely discussion. Thank you and good day. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Sir Noy, for that wonderful opening remarks. Before we introduce our first resource speaker, let me quickly mention our forum's guideline. This guideline will ensure the efficient conduct of our forum today. All participants will be muted except for the speakers and the moderator. Participants may type their question and comments via the Zoom chat box. At the moment, the chat box is disabled, but we will enable it later during the open forum. Those interested to have copies of the resource speaker's presentation, kindly signify your interest later when the chat box is already enabled by sending us your name and your email address. Definitely, we will provide and send the presentation materials of the resource speakers after the forum. Friends and colleagues, thank you for your attention. Now, moving forward, let me introduce our first resource speaker. Our first resource speaker is the Program Manager of the Integrated Development Studies Institute. He has helped the Department of Trade and Industry organize training programs to help Filipino entrepreneurs increase trade and relation with China and ASEAN neighbors. He also taught global developments in De La Salle University and Tsinghua University, where he received his MPA. He also studied in UP Diliman and Northeastern Boston. He co-authored Philippine-China Interplay Between Domestic Politics and Globalization, and he also co-founded Philippine-China Friendship Club with some of the Filipinos who studied in the top universities in China. Without further ado, friends, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Austin Ong for his presentation. Austin, you have the floor. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Anna, and thank you, APCU. Good afternoon, President Jeffrey Nang and the officers of APCU, friends and ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see old friends and new friends as well. May I have share screen?
Yes, your co-author. You can share your screen. Your co-host pala, sorry. Yes.
Can everyone see my first page, China's education reform,
Yes.
background analysis? All right, I'll
Yes,
go straight to the slides. I was asked to give more of a macro and then some insights and also research from our Integrated Development Studies Institute. I'll also share some personal experience as one of the co-founders of Philippines-China Friendship Club. Of course, the actual online tutoring experience comes from our beloved teacher John, who will be sharing after me. So I'll go straight to the outline. The China's education reform, we're focusing more on the banning the online and after-school tutoring that Officer Sixto Benedicto had given us a short interview earlier. Of course, that guideline, that reform encompasses far more provisions. No, we'll just focus on the online and after-school tutoring. Our position here is this is another example. It's not perfect. Some criticize it for its heavy-handedness and the sudden imposition of this policy. But at the same time, it also shows another example of China's evolving, continuing work in progress to find a balanced society, even if painful, and we will show how painful that is later on. It also shows, as mentioned earlier, that the balance between the state power over unbridled capitalism for societal objectives being considered conscious priorities. And of course, on the Philippine side, over 30,000 Filipinos were earning 30,000 to 80,000 monthly, even during the pandemic. And this is all before the reform was implemented. But now it is also time for us, the Filipinos, to evolve and repackage our skills. So the timeline here is interesting because in July 24, 2021, there was a leaked document. That was actually a joint release by the Communist Party and the State Council. So our friends here know that China's governance and policy work in two legs. So this shows the unity among the policymakers on this program, that it has strong support. And it's interesting that the title itself explains everything already. Guidelines for further easing the burden of excessive homework and off-campus tutoring for students at the stage of compulsory education. So we'll try to weed out what are the nuances and interesting points here that we can discuss later on. On August 2021, about a few weeks later, the formal announcement that China is banning for-profit tutoring in core education to rein in the private education industry, manage widening societal gaps, and improve school life balance for families. No, it also introduced what they call the double reduction, no, which I think teacher John will expound on later on. On September 18, and this timeline also shows the evolution of the policy. It's not a one-time big time. No, there are tiered introduction of provisions. Now, September 18, the Chinese Ministry of Education clarified the guidelines for online education platforms, providing a legal way forward for the sector to develop. Guidelines include 30 measures on education sector reforms to improve education quality, ease homework burdens for students, and restrict private investment, both domestic and foreign, in the industry. Summary of the impact on the industry. No, it closed corporate-based tutoring services that was valued at over $300 billion. No, prohibit teachers from offering after-school tutoring. These are formal teachers, no, so they cannot, like high school teachers or elementary school teachers, cannot offer their services after school. And it also banned holiday and weekend tutoring and will no longer approve tuition centers. As I mentioned, it's a $300 billion industry employing 10 million people. 75% of students aged 6 to 18 years attended after-school tutoring in 2016. This is all before the reform. And of course, that the data differs, no, based on the level of the city. First level, second level, third level cities have different, whether it's urban and rural. Those dynamics, we'll touch on it a little bit, but of course, that will require more in-depth discussion. And then the new policies itself cut over $100 billion in value. By January 2022, just a month ago, all for-profit academic tutoring has been outlawed. Initially started with K-9 tutoring, but later also included high school tutoring programs. Beijing's argument that this was necessary to save children from the burnout and to help increase productivity, creativity. No, lighten pressure on parents spending substantial percentage of their income on private classes. The packages that we heard from friends in China, no, they were paying 60,000 RMB, which is about a little less than times 8. So it's about 400, less than $500,000 pesos, no, for 100. Is that right? My math, yeah. For 100 Chinese classes to over 200,000 RMB in Shanghai. So you can see that the range, no, can be quite big. And as Director Benedicto mentioned, it's aimed to reduce inequality, no, between the rich and the poor, and the rat race to the top. And interestingly, it also has a social component, which is they believe that this pressure is actually depressing the national birth rate. No, so census in May, this is 2021, showed that the country aging more rapidly, which is also experienced in all developing countries. No, but China's government is taking a more proactive action or efforts to stem that worrying tide. No, because once they hit that decreasing, which they already are, it's hard to reverse the stem the cycle. And more interestingly, 1.5 is it's aimed to manage unregulated Western influences on Chinese children. No, this came after a year before that China banned foreign teaching materials in education. Many of the Chinese education firms are listed in the US. These are TAL Education Group and New Oriental are billion-dollar education groups that have already publicly listed in the US. No, and there are 400,000 foreign teachers in 2017. I was one of them in 2012 to 2014. Avoiding political enculturations of the West that is seen as more disputes-oriented mentality more than the productive, practical thinking of the Asian education system. No? This chart shows that the venture capital, no, going into China's education industry saw a substantial boost in 2022. This is partly also because of the pandemic that made the students have to do online classes from home. No, so I think this is some of the backgrounds or the context that give us a more deeper or more comprehensive understanding, no, of what the Chinese government has to work with. And then this chart here, after school tutoring expenses, we can see the division among the first tier, second tier cities, urban and rural, country level, This is, of course, an average, which is we see here, for example, in the middle, on the left table, on the middle side, the first-year cities, they were seeing an average of spending 30,000 yen, no? Or which is about 30,000 times 8 is about 25,000 pesos, no? On the, sorry, 30 times 8 is 250,000 pesos, no? So about 250,000 pesos a year just on per kid, no? This is per kid on after school tutoring expenses. So the burden on the parents and the pressure was quite significant, no? Of course, I can share this slide later for our friends to review more in depth. This is a Peking University study. Okay. We also see the contrast on how the West portrayed it. No, so again, we do agree that it might have seemed, heavy-handed or sudden in the implementation. Western media portrayal, they call it a crackdown. Now the industry is undergoing a messy and painful collapse with ordinary families and workers, the collateral damage. But at the same time, official surveys in China show broad public support, no, in lessening the pressure or the rat race to the top pressure, no. And then although private surveys show a large portion of parents surveyed want their children to continue receiving after-school tutoring, which is understandable on the parent family level, no. But interesting in contrast, Europe, I just read this in the Wall Street Journal, Europe is actually facing a shortages of qualified teachers, especially for the families that want their kids to catch up given what they missed during the pandemic, no. So we can see how this dynamic is playing in other parts of the world. Although there are alternatives, no, so it's not a one size fit all policy, no, and there are also nuances and intricacies that we'll share a few here. Of course, this is not comprehensive, no. The alternatives is a private individual one-on-one tutoring are still non-profit are still allowed, no. Again, but the teacher who is teaching formally in the high school and elementary level are not allowed to teach after because of the second point here is they found that which is understandable also, the teacher become lax in teaching their students during the official hours, so that the students will pay them for their after school services. And then education companies are also allowed to adopt by expanding non-academic curricula and offering after school classes for free, or they convert into NGOs. No, and then the Chinese government will be implementing a guidance price for academic tutoring services later on. No, this is just our own analysis. This effect is debatable whether it's a net positive, but it shows that China's government philosophy is not centered on profit but has social considerations. And interestingly, this policy is a part of a bigger package. No, it's not a directly just for the industry of education, but also shown by large drops in hundreds of billions of dollars in limiting the digital game playing time of children to weekends. So the Beijing government required the gaming and the video creators to limit their exposure to children. And Tencent and Alibaba, the major game players, have already followed and complied with this new policy. No, of course, many parents are happy for this and make the young people more real life oriented. Those who have kids, I have nephews. You can imagine how hard to take their tablet from them once they start playing these Candy Crush or Mobile Legend. No, so this might be applicable also to the Philippines. And also, China, Beijing government also forced large digital platforms like Alipay and WeChat Pay to open to all other platforms rather than to try to corner the markets. No, so an interesting study also would be to compare how the U.S. telecom companies and the U.S. Gaming companies are also being managed by their government, no, or the effect on society. So we can also see a contrast here. Just a little bit of trivia, no. So I'm sure we know all the controversy of Eileen Koo winning the 2 gold medal under the China flag, no. But interesting because every year she was actually going back to China to attend the Olympic math training, no. So her training center actually became a sensation overnight when the netizens found out where she was studying. But that tutoring service had also downgraded their services. But she has a quote: "My mother told me that having math classes in China for 10 days would be equivalent to an entire year's worth of learning in the US." No, and the result 1580 out of 1600 SAT, and she has a Stanford waiting for her. And the 2 gold medals actually happened during her gap year. Very productive, youngest person to win the gold medal in Olympics freestyle skiing history. She was also, of course, top student in high school, and she was raised by her single mom and grandma, who she credited when she won the first gold. The first person she looked for was her. You can see it on the video. She was calling for her mother. But the mother is also an accomplished lady, biochem, molecular biology from US and MBA at Stanford. So you can see we call this the tiger mom, like Anna, who can do everything well and train the children also in that successful direction. But I'm sure that, but she doesn't look like a person who feels the pressure, right? So maybe there's a balance, no? Just to share out that's basically summarizes, but just to share the picture on the right, these are Filipinos who are from the top universities in China, from Peita, Renmin, Peking University, Renmin University, Tsinghua University, in Shanghai, Fudan, and Guangzhou, no? So for those, there are a lot of parents and friends here who want their their children to maybe consider studying in China. IDSI can connect you with the organizations that are providing these. I missed one slide. Sorry, I'll just go back. This is our, we all IDSI always promote the practical and productive take home, no? So for opportunities for the enterprising Filipinos, I won't go into details. I think teacher John will expound on that, but the teaching adults is another industry that can open up, especially with the Filipinos, American English very much in demand in China. No, other non-academic subjects. And interestingly, many Chinese companies in the Philippines want to hire more Filipinos who are hardworking, good interpersonal skills to bridge the gaps for marketing and relations building, and who understand the Chinese culture and language and can learn engineering faster as they are getting trained from these Chinese tech companies and engineering companies. And then, of course, we prepare for the return of the, in 2019, we had 1.7 million Chinese tourists, which actually tripled from the previous years. But Thailand had 11 million, Vietnam had 5 million. And of course, with the build and the language support, we can capitalize on this. Of course, the current political situation in the world should also be taken into account. No? So going back to this picture is these Filipinos are, every time there's a party in China, there's always a Filipino in the middle because the Chinese people really love us. Our hospitality, we're very easy to make friends with, and we can communicate between the West and the East and act as a bridge. So I hope that leaves some food for thought for discussion later. Thank you very much. Anna, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, sorry. Raven muted me. Now I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you very much, Austin, for that very informative and very educational presentation. Yeah, that's a very dynamic one. So moving forward, we'll have our question and answer later after the presentation of our second speaker. So moving forward, to introduce our second speaker, let me call on Raven to play a short audiovisual presentation. Raven, are you ready? Please play.
The youngest among the 10 APPCU laureates is John Nicolo Fredrik Fernandez, also known as Teacher John Lucas, and That Crazy Fun Teacher is a 51 Talk Teacher brand ambassador who has been on the platform for over 3 years. He creates videos about Chinese culture and collaborates on his video projects with his Chinese students. He is also very popular in China on his Bilibili channel, which has thousands of followers. He serves as a director for JNF Studios from 2013 to the present. His passion for teaching made him become an online sensation in China because of his cool and engaging antics while conducting lessons. He loves to incorporate and promote Chinese culture into his videos. He made videos of making Chinese food during Chinese New Year and did some cosplay of some Chinese celebrities on his social media accounts on YouTube and Facebook as That Crazy Fun Teacher. John Fernandez has been traveling to China many times since 2019. In one of his travels, his team competed in Beijing for the SINA 5-Star Teachers Competition and clinched the 5-Star Teacher Award because of their unique and engaging teaching techniques. His warm interactions with students made him an active advocate of student-centered learning. This significant attribute of his personality is seen through his creative videos on his students' birthdays, movie dubbing shows, and tongue twisters with Chinese students.
Thank you, Raven. Friends and colleagues, let us welcome our second resource speaker for today's APCO Forum, one of the laureates or awardees of the 2021 Awards for Promoting Philippine-China Understanding, or APPCU, and the former 5-1 Talk brand ambassador, Mr. Nicolo Fredrik Fernandez. John, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me again. I hope everyone is feeling great. All right. So, of course, I'm going to be talking about China's double reduction policy, and there are so many things to know about this new policy, like Sir Austin presented. But so I want to present something that is easy to digest, especially for online teachers like me, who might be watching now or who might see this later. All right. So let me just share my presentation. All right. So China's double reduction policy, in a nutshell. Okay. So in a nutshell, the China's double reduction policy came to be, in order to ease the financial burden of education on Chinese families and reduce the family support for education to a reasonable level, thus increasing the overall fertility rate. This may be surprising to some who isn't really aware. Right? So I will not get into the numbers or the stats, but there has been a sharp decline in birth rates in China. Okay, so this has been the lowest birth rate in China in over a decade. With Chinese people choosing to have smaller families or to have no children at all. Why? Because parents will often and do make extreme sacrifices to ensure their child the private education required, and to give their child as much opportunity as possible for their future education and career paths. And of course, due to the cost of these classes, parents have stopped having large families, and in some cases have stopped having families altogether. So believe it or not, this is one of the main reasons why the president of China brought in the ban. Okay, now let's get into some policy details. This is, a good information for online ESL teachers like me. So the affected age groups are the preschoolers, students in compulsory education, and high school students. And let's talk about their training time. So they are not allowed to train in any way, not allowed in public holidays, rest days, or winter and summer holidays. And their daily training must be completed before 2100 hours Beijing time. Okay, and now, the online ESL companies in China is not allowed to. They are not allowed to employ foreigners abroad to carry out online training activities. So this brings us to our online ESL industry, which is $100 billion industry. So this massive industry shift has changed the infrastructure of the online ESL industry. And there are about 33 companies that have been affected, or more than 30 companies that have been affected by this. And I'll name the notable ones. They are the companies that are also well known in our country. So namely, Palfish, Magic Ears, iTutor Group, GoGo Kid, VIP Kid, Panda ABC, and of course, the company where I came from, 5-1 Talk. 5-1, not 51. Okay. So yeah. So just a bit of information about the stock price of 5-1 Talk. So the stock price plummeted about 32.1% just within a week of the implementation of this new policy. So each of these companies have thousands and thousands of Filipino online ESL teachers. So obviously, or as you may know, employment in the Philippines is not easy, especially for women who need to take care of their families. So statistics show that the average monthly salary in the Philippines is about 13,800 pesos. Okay, but until 2018, only 46.6% of women in the Philippines entered the labor market. So this year, while researching, the minimum wage in the Philippines is 537 pesos a day. Okay, so if you are being paid right, you may get paid more or less this amount, 537 pesos, but you can earn it in just an hour. So imagine the help that it brings to thousands and thousands of Filipino online ESL teachers, especially the, let's say, housewives. They can earn a good amount on the side by doing this, and especially now that everyone's livelihood has been affected by this pandemic, and just like that, everything has been taken away. But not only the money, it also took away the bond and friendship that has been formed by countless students, parents, Chinese students, parents, and Filipino teachers. And without these online ESL companies, most of us will probably never would have met these amazing people in China. So up next, I had the privilege of interviewing some Chinese parents about their thoughts on the double reduction policy. This is also about the policy of losing their foreign English teachers completely. I'm one of them. And here's what they had to say in bullet points. So the first one is Carrie. She is from Guangzhou, a parent from Guangzhou. Her daughter is also my student. And their only chance to practice their spoken English is with foreigners. And it's a good way of learning English, speaking with foreigners. And there are a few foreigners in China, so no English environment. And the importance of English for her is, Chinese people often contact foreigners for business. And she told me a very quick story. There's this woman who's good in her job, but doesn't know a word of English. So she cannot present something with their foreign clients. So that's why she didn't have the chance to get promoted, right? So kind of a big deal over there. And the next one is Jojo from Ningbo, a parent. Her daughter is also my student. So yeah, they save a lot of money because there's no extra classes to be paid anymore. But their grades are much lower than last year, which gives them anxiety. Because I think the student needs to reach a certain grade in order to go to college. If you don't reach that grade, you will not go to college anymore. So maybe that's new to some online ESL teachers. Okay, and for Connie from Guangzhou, like Carrie, her son is my student also, and she is my student as well. And she said you don't know if the kids are learning because there are less exams, and Chinese English teachers focus only on writing and listening. But foreigners, it's more focused on speaking. Yeah, we tend to speak more with people than just writing. Okay, and by the way, I interviewed a good amount of Chinese parents, but I just chose the ones with the unique answers because basically what they say is the same. So last but not the least, this is Lolly from Huizhou. She is my student, a parent, and her daughter as well. So online is good. It's convenient. Obviously, you can do it anytime, anywhere, and even the smallest city can have a foreign teacher. That easy. And Chinese people are good on paper, but not in speaking. Kids cannot have classes on weekends. Thus, less skills. And like I said before, if they don't reach a certain grade, they cannot be able to go to college. And in order to speak English well, it's better to have a foreign teacher, not a Chinese English teacher. And I don't know if this sounds funny, but the only chance to use English in China is to tell a foreigner where to go in their city. All right, so that's their only practice. So just imagine if they don't have foreign English teachers anymore. All right, so an additional thing is that they said is they are still hiring private tutors for certain subjects. So they are still, spending extra money. It's not extra classes, but still spending extra money for private tutors. So they say it's like virtually the same, but only harder for them. So that's all. That's all. I hope I shed a light to some people, some especially online ESL teachers. Thank you very much. Miss Anna, I think, okay.
Yes, I unmuted myself again. Okay. Thank you very much, Teacher John, for that equally informative and very much more an experiential based presentation of your experience, of course, and of other experience of ESL teacher, Filipino teachers who've been teaching online. So to further the discussion on the points and ideas and perspective raised by both of our resource speakers, let us move on to the open forum. The chat box is already open or enabled, so you can actually type your questions in there and your comments as well. So please do. And now let's go to question and answer. I think the first question would come from me. So my first question would be for, but of course, Mr. Austin Ong can also respond to the question. The first one is, this is with regards to ESL teachers. So thus far in your former company, John, how many ESL teachers have been affected? And at the same time, in what sense they've been affected? And you're not anymore with 5-1 Talk, right? But you have your own company as I've known, no? So are you also doing teaching? Still have clients with, in China with your new company?
For now,
okay.
I'm focusing on multimedia. Multimedia, yeah. But and honestly, I don't know the statistics, but 5-1 Talk has over 30,000 teachers, and everyone has been affected, and a lot has lost their jobs. Either they quit, they got fired, or the others had their salaries decreased dramatically. So
it's like different impact in that sense, no?
Yes.
Any comments on the part of Mr. Ong? Do you have any experience or any other company which have a different experience, no, in terms of impact on online teacher? Yes, Austin.
Of course, as I shared with you earlier, the Chinese kids and the parents love especially once they get to know the Filipino teacher. So it did get a significant, the education reform did have a significant impact. What I heard is more than half, I think, were, if not more. But of course, that is something it's another developing event. But it's actually similar to our call center industry. As we know, if the market is evolving, the call center supply also has to evolve. Otherwise, we're gonna be left behind.
Do you think the same that kind of policy is applicable in the Philippines? Not necessarily on ESL teacher, because we speak English very well, no? But in that similar manner, in educational technology. So do you think this policy is applicable in the Philippines? In what sense? What do you think, Austin?
We're Filipinos we're very social. I think it's very hard to, if you mean that the online teaching to enhance the Philippines tutorial program, if that's what you mean.
We have also online teaching here, but like math, science, but
Correct.
not necessarily English. Yeah.
Correct. But I think most of our kids prefer that one-on-one. Whereas the Chinese kid, if the parent says go to the online lesson, the kids will not complain. But our kids here have too many freedom. So, but more interestingly, actually, there's a lot of these what do you call it, the AI type tutoring program. So even without this, of course, this education policy fast track the changes, no? But a lot of these AI programs are also taking over a lot of the online teachers' role. So it's definitely an uncertain future.
What about you, John? What do you think?
If the Philippines will have their own double reduction policy.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
not necessarily on English teaching, because as I've said earlier, we are already very fluent in English, and I think English is like a second or a first language to us already. But on other aspect, like it's also happening in the Philippines. No, like on my hand, my kids are always on online teaching different subject, and after classes they also have other tutors and all of these things to be more competitive and be more up at par with the rest of kids, no, in school. So what do you think?
Well, I think the main reason is the increasing the overall fertility rate. I think we don't have that problem. So
yeah, I
so
think
it's
so.
not
We're
applicable
overpopulated.
in my opinion.
But
Yeah, just to add, Professor Anna, also, it's the result that counts, because in the PISA, the PISA and the TIMS teams, international global ranking on education, Philippines we are last in math, science, and in reading, no? Even if we are, as you said, English speaking country, but China is in the top 3, and that shows that the big difference, no? So actually it's not even the online tutoring program, because our formal education sector really needs reform as well. That's another
issue, and I think that's another topic. Yeah. I'm reminding everyone that you can actually make your comments and ask your question. The chat box, I think, is already enabled by Raven. So another question here that was sent to me by a friend who actually asked me to be accepted in the chat, and I accepted him already. It's more about the question is, what do you think is the advantage of the policy? I mean, the said policy that we've been discussing, and also the disadvantage. Of course, we have to talk about China. Well, Austin, I think, lived in China and studied in China, and you, to a certain extent, John, have visited China many times. So, what do you think from your own perspective, no, from different backgrounds?
Teacher John, you want to take it first?
Oh, sure. Well, the advantage for me is, I've been teaching for not so long actually, but more than 4 years already. And what I've learned is like the kids do homework or schoolwork 24/7. So this policy is a good thing for them. They get to rest, and they get to be a kid. They're only a kid and for 18 years, and after that they are like us already adults. Well, the disadvantage for them is like the parents said, I like this, like you don't know if the kids are learning because there are less exams and they are having less skills. Actually, I think all of the Chinese kids are really skilled in something. So yeah, with this policy, less time to learn more skills. So that's a disadvantage for me, I think.
Okay, thank you for that. What about you, Austin? What do you think?
We're looking at it more on the overall
the macro.
Yeah, the macro, the direction of China. This education reform is actually part of a bigger package, no, of China going from quantity to quality. No? So they're saying this high growth, even in their economy, from numbers game to a quality game. No, so of course the result is yet to be seen. But we have seen this applied also not only in the education reform, but in their economic GDP data, no, in their pursuit for economic growth in the last 40 years, that was at the expense of their environment, on their social cost, and one of that is the declining population. So I think it also shows that China is evolving, no, or learning while doing. At the same time, of course, it is painful. So those who are affected, like the parents and of course the children, are probably happier, right? But it's the parents who worry more about the children. The parents will find a way, no, as enterprising like Teacher John or other enterprising teachers, they find their other channels because this the education reform actually does not prohibit foreigners from having their own arrangements with the parents on a one-to-one. So it becomes more of an individual relationship rather than a corporate or a formal basis. No, so the result is yet to be seen to assess advantages and disadvantages. But I think it only means that we have to keep in touch with the developments there and make sure that we are also adjusting along the way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I have last two questions here, but let me ask this question first to John. Since John is, the former ambassador of 5-1 Talk. Don't worry, John. 5-1 Talk. And then I actually also, being an ambassador of 5-1 Talk, of course, you've known the company, to a greater extent. And I think 5-1 Talk is also can be categorized like educational technology companies. So in what sense do you think edtech companies could possibly cope up with such a policy in China? Because if you look at China, China is a big market, no? And companies are actually trying to get that market, so because you generate revenues. So, but in what sense do you think, from your experience being a 5-1 Talk ambassador, getting to know the company, its operation, how do you think they can cope up? Would they improve their technology? What do you think is the possibility? And you being also managing a company right now, so in what sense do you think they can cope up with the policy?
Actually, the companies that I presented, some of them closed down, some of them are about to close down, but the bigger companies already made a move. They are going global already, and they will. If this policy goes on for a long time, they will leave the Chinese market and cater to other countries.
What about you, Austin? From your research, and of course, you have friends as well in these companies, no?
Yes. As Teacher John said, many of them are closing down. The ones who are surviving have to evolve. Many of them went into they call it the NGO or nonprofit services while they are transitioning. And you made a good point, Anna, that these are actually considered tech companies also because of they're basically online providers, online services providers. So we can also look at this from the e-payment sector and these tech giants that China also implemented several stringent reforms, no? But more importantly, actually, I like you're very charming today. So we will share a little bit. Actually, this evolving landscape gives the enterprising Filipinos opportunities. No, so okay, we'll give inside tip. No, so one example that we can do is Filipinos can organize education tours, right? So instead of the Chinese kids doing the online classes there, they can visit here when things are opened up and the situation allows. And we can actually bring the students here, and Teacher John will have not only an education company but a tourism company. And there's a lot of young, I see the names, there are a lot of young teachers here and also Filipinos in China. They can be our bridge, no? They can be the one to market in China to provide Filipino-made education packages. And I believe there's a big potential there as the economy opens up. As long as we don't get war.
No. That's something that we should not even think about. But Anna, one parent here is actually asking a very nice question. Do you think the policy will have an adverse effect to the Chinese students' competitiveness and skills given their high ranking globally? Because you mentioned earlier, Austin, you said like China, even though how you have this policy at the moment, being constrained in terms of teaching English, but still, if you look at the global ranking, the Chinese is on the top, even in English. So right now, the question is, in what sense this will impact that kind of competitiveness the Chinese students, possess in that sense. If you don't have English teachers there teaching English, or EdTech will not have that leeway of extending that kind of education to the children, no, especially from kindergarten to high school. So yeah, that's the question of that's my husband, John Lawrence Uy, who asked the question. What do you think? Hello?
John, teacher John?
Yeah.
Yes, Teacher John.
Okay. Well, like he said, the Chinese students are, competitive and skilled. And knowing my students and their parents, they will find a way, find a way to keep things the same, right? No matter what. That's how dedicated they are to
That's
their
how competitive
education.
they are.
Yeah. Mhm. To
Yeah.
their education.
Yes. What about you, Austin? In what sense it will affect the global competitiveness of Chinese students, no, being on top of the ranking globally?
I echo teacher John. To add also, China's education policy. They're also looking at starting at the elementary before they enter high school. They're going to identify the kids for vocational direction and liberal studies direction because the government wants more vocational and technical skills. So I think they're following the Germany model. So of course English is still the top of mind for the parents for their kids, but a lot of these YouTube or their version of YouTube already offers these online English programs. So I think I agree with teacher John that the Chinese parents, the tiger moms, will definitely find a way.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I can relate to the moms, no, of trying to make their kids very, very competitive. Wait, because I don't have battery anymore. Let me just how do you call that? Let me read the comment of Miss Diana De Mayuga. Sabi niya, I'm still teaching for 2 online platforms mentioned by Teacher John, but the booking is low. But it's like about 50%. But on the other companies who are still doing the business, it's almost around 80%. So it means it's not really completely zero, no? It's still, I think it depends on the EdTech how they can cope up. So now to ask the last,
when we're talking about the restricting or the limiting of the online classes, these are on the core subjects, no, English, math, science, because the Beijing government wants the schools to be the primary source of education, no. But for example, sports, arts and crafts, the dancing, for example, for the kids will still be allowed, no. So I think we're looking at the core subjects only when we talk about these restrictions, new restrictions.
okay. So let me check if there's more question here. Wait. Oh yeah. Well, I think I have asked all the questions that was sent to me and also my question. Any last words from our speakers before I move on to the next part of the program of this forum? Austin?
Thank
have
you
last word?
again for inviting us, and again for parents or friends who would like to consider either studying in China, masters or PhD, or even short training courses, or for Filipinos who are maybe looking at employment opportunities here in the Philippines with Chinese companies, do get in touch. And we can connect you with the right organization. Of course, APCU is also playing an important role in bridging those opportunities for Filipinos. Thank you very much.
John?
Yes, just thank you very much. I'm very grateful for being invited here. And if you have more questions, you may reach me at my social media pages, That Crazy Fun Teacher.
Okay, before I let you go, both of you, I have last question, sorry. In what sense do you think APCU can possibly continue its work in terms of promoting Philippine-China relation and even in this field? No, in what sense? Sorry. Yes, John. Ikaw na, mas bata ka.
Okay. Well, maybe more forums like this would definitely help to educate more people, to spread awareness. Mhm.
Okay.
There.
The other younger gentleman here, yes, Austin. Don't worry, Austin. I know that you're younger than me, way younger than me. Say yes.
Yeah, no, I totally echo Teacher John. Actually, this kind of stories, because a lot of our webinars sometimes, or our experts, they want the country to focus on the political, which is important, no, or the disputes. But this people to people, and we know for the past 1,000 years, the people to people relationship has made both countries, both peoples flourish and benefit on the trade, economic, but also in the cultural and the people-to-people level. So thank you very much. I think this kind of webinars should be more promoted, and APCU is an important pillar in this regard.
Okay, thank you so much to both of our speakers for sharing their perspective and for answering the questions that was thrown to them. So for the last part of our program, let me call on the president of APCO, Mr. Jeffrey Nam, for the closing remarks. Sir Jeff, you have the floor po.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
APCO Vice
Good
Chairman
afternoon.
Sixto Benedicto, fellow trustees, officers, and members of APCO, to our prominent resource speakers, Award for Promoting Philippine-China Understanding 2021 Laureate, Mr. John Fernandez, and Mr. Austin Ong, media partners, friends, and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The Chinese policy prohibiting for-profit online tutoring services off-campus, education programs after school and on weekends, and vacations that target kids in kindergarten, primary, and middle schools undoubtedly adversely impacted education technology or edtech firms in China and overseas. Likewise, Filipino online English teachers have been affected undesirably by such a policy to a considerable extent, as narrated by Mr. John Fernandez and Austin Ong earlier in their presentations. Nevertheless, it is essential to recognize the fundamental rationale why the Chinese government pushed forward the said policy, and that's to alleviate stress on students, reduce families' education costs, and ensure equal education to all, which is pretty much reasonable and deserves consideration. Likewise, the tough regulations imposed by the Chinese government on online lessons for Chinese students that have hurt many edtech firms in the market. Yet some edtech firms see the brighter side of things. They see the situation as an opportunity for product development and novelty. Many are reorienting their customer acquisition strategies through different channels or markets and offering more innovative products. Also, edtech companies were given a chance to get new licenses and register as nonprofit organizations, which would allow these companies to offer after-school tutoring on a nonprofit basis, with other areas allowed for profit, such as vocational training or adult teaching for professional exams. All these are constructive and encouraging developments that somehow balance out or even up the negative impacts of the policy restriction on online tutoring services, particularly edtech companies. And even Filipino edtech companies can now do cultural tourism tours and education tours for Chinese citizens. On this note, on behalf of APCU, I would like to congratulate and extend my sincere gratitude to two of our resource speakers for sharing their ideas, knowledge, and experience about this topic this afternoon. Let me express as well my gratitude to all who have joined and participated in this APCU forum this afternoon. I hope you have all learned something. No doubt, your presence and active participation have made this forum a fruitful endeavor. See you in the next APCU forum next month. Again, thank you and have a pleasant day to all of you.
Thank you, APCO President Jeffrey Nang. Thank you, Sir Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, our forum has come to an end. On behalf again of APCO, I would like to thank you for your participation. I would like also to express our sincere thanks to our esteemed resource speakers, Mr. John Fernandez and Mr. Austin Ong, for sharing again your knowledge, ideas, and experience on the topic. We hope that everyone learned something from our excellent resource speakers. Again, we will see you po on next month. We will have another APCO forum and on a very interesting topic as well. Thank you very much, everyone, and we hope to see you next month. Maraming salamat po. Seshe, mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Thank
you, Teacher
you.
John. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Yeah.